Have you ever had the perfect thing to say come to mind just after a conversation ended? Ever thought, I wish I would have said this or that differently? You're not alone. One Last Word podcast is an outlet for every wish I would have said, hadn't thought of that before moment. Every Monday, pastors from Living Hope Church will engage with the recent Sunday morning conversation and drill down a little deeper. Catch a short snapshot of the message and hear something new and unexpected. One Last Word provides the opportunity to not let those challenging ideas and deeper thoughts go left unchecked. Join us as we get in One Last Word.
Well, hello, everybody. On this Monday afternoon, I'm so excited to be here with my fellow wanderers and ponderers, just to talk about faith and life. And we just wrapped up a conversation here at Living Hope this past Sunday called Raise Them Up. And it was a fantastic conversation. I hope that you were able to either watch it in person or watch it online on Sunday, or maybe you go back and watch it on YouTube or Facebook, elivinghope.com or facebook.com/elivinghope, or check us out on YouTube at eLivingHope. Or hope you find your way here to One Last Word. What is One Last Word, you might ask? Well, it's a weekly podcast from pastors of Living Hope Church to just spend a little more time, one last word on the previous conversation from Sunday morning. I think it's really a valuable thing to come back. I know there's oftentimes, especially like this week, there's something that I just didn't have enough time to talk about and wish I just had one more opportunity to engage whatever topic we talked about on Sunday. So I'm glad that you found yourself here. One Last Word. And if you take a second right now, you can subscribe to One Last Word. You get notifications on your phone or your tablet or your any digital device to let you know when new episodes drop. We'd love for you to do that and be connected with us here at Living Hope Church. Just another way to find connection with other people in your faith journey. We also ask that maybe you share One Last Word on Facebook or tell a friend about it, how it encouraged you. We hope it is of value to you in your life. Anyway, we were talking this past week, like I said, we wrapped up our conversation, Raise Them Up. It actually wrapped up our entire summer series, Relationships 101. We talked about the marriage relationship or dating significant other romantic relationships in the month of June. Then in July, we talked about how we were made for community and what it meant to be the family of Christ and the body of Christ as a community of faith. And then here in August, we spent a few weeks talking about how to raise the next generation, whether you're parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, single people, widows, widowers, people within the church. How do we raise up the next generation, and what does it mean to raise them up? And we spent 3 weeks all focused around this beautiful little proverb, a little nugget of wisdom from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. It says, raise up your children in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And we spent 3 whole weeks just digging into the depths of that little nugget of wisdom from the book of Proverbs and really learning what does it mean to raise our kids up in the way we talked about in week 1, and that we have this great revelation of what the way is. And there have been a lot of different ways described to live your life. The world tells you a certain way. Religion tells you a certain way. Jesus enters the scene, we talked about in week 1, and declares that I am the way, the truth, and the life, that he is the way. And we talked about how if we don't know the way as parents or as people in the lives of the next generation, then how in the world will we ever lead our children or the next generation in the way they should go? And then week 2, we talked about that second little part, raise your kids up or train them up in the way they should go. And then we talked about how we live in a want-to-go world. I wonder if you've experienced that in your own faith journey. Oftentimes the tension in my relationship with God comes when I discern and figure out that the difference between what I want and what God says I should do are two completely different things. And that oftentimes the things that I want don't lead me to my best life. And we talked about how that often arises in relationship with kiddos and our children, the next generation. And we get confused thinking that we want our kids to be happy, which oftentimes then equals we give our kids what they want. And what we want very rarely leads us to our best life. We have a distorted view of our desires for what we want in life, and they can oftentimes easily be confused or distorted. And God shows up and shows us the way we should go. And as parents, we talked about how our kids don't know the way to go. That's why God has placed us as parents or significant figures in the lives of our kids to show them the way they should go. And this last week, we rounded it up, and that's what I want to talk about today and hit on, because I had a really fantastic conversation with a beautiful lady from our church. She has grandkids. She's in older years, and we talked about just how this series has impacted her in her life and with her kids and her grandkids, and just had a fantastic conversation. But something came up in our talk this morning that really stirred my heart to want to kind of touch on something that as an outflow from this past Sunday. We talked about that last little line: raise your kids up in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And she was talking about the tension that happens when you raise kids or grandkids or whatever, and they end up living lives that don't reflect the way that we had hoped to raise them. So if your kid finds their way to some troubling circumstance, or they go through something really traumatic and hard and it impacts them in a really negative way, or maybe they're dealing with some kind of mental illness or mental health situation that just impacts them and leads them down a path in life that leads them to pain or brokenness, or inflicting pain on others, or destruction and destructive habits and tendencies in relationships. Fill in the gap. And maybe you're out there and you're like, man, that's me. I want the best for my kids, and yet my kids, at whatever age they are, decided to go a different way than what I had hoped to show them. Or maybe for you, the circumstances, you didn't show your child the way they should go, and they're living in a way now that's bringing them pain or brokenness in their relationship, or you're worried for them in that way. And this beautiful lady this morning just asked me, what do we do in those situations? It's really hard when our kids aren't flourishing and they're not living their best life. And then we have this promise from Proverbs 22:6 that says, raise your kids in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And what do we do wrong? And as parents or significant figures in the lives of our kids, we have feelings of regret. And man, I wish my kid would have done this, or I wish I'd have done this differently. Maybe my kid would be in a better place. And we have all these feelings of what happens when our kids aren't living the life that we'd hoped they lived. And my heart was just grieved and saddened, and that's just real life stuff. Our kids are going to struggle in life, and so what do we do with that? And what also do we do with this promise that God has given us, that our kids will be raised in the way they should go, that when they're old, they won't depart from it? And it brought me my attention just to the semantics of that verse, right? It doesn't say, raise your kids in the way they should go, and then the rest of their life will be peachy keen. That's not what the Proverbs say. It actually is really interesting. It says very specifically, raise your kids in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And my heart, my spirit just connected with that reality, because the truth is, for most of us, if we go back and look at our lives, we all have seasons of life where we don't go the way that we know we should go, or we don't go the way in life maybe that we were taught was the right way to go, or we question that, or we find ourselves in broken situations or making poor choices. We all have those seasons of life. It's like the one thing that brings us all together as humans, is that we all mess up really good. Like we're masters at it, And the same is true for our kids. They're going to have seasons where they're going to struggle or make hard decisions or poor decisions and go the way that they shouldn't go. And it doesn't negate or nullify all the work that we did to raise them up. And that little Proverbs, I think, speaks to something true about life in general. I don't know, maybe this is true for you. I know it's true for me, is that the older I get, the more I realize that the more I know just reveals how little I know. I think that's really the definition of true wisdom. And you can't have true wisdom until you've lived enough life to recognize that all that you know really just reveals all that you don't know, or how much you have yet to grasp. And I think we need life, and we need circumstance and situations and consequences to eventually teach us later on in life to return to the things that we know, or the foundations of our lives that offer us the pathway to flourishing. So I think my one last word for you as parents today is to take hope. that wherever you are in your parenting journey, whether you're early on and you're setting that foundation for your kids, know that it will be a foundation that they can return to if you've led them to the way of Jesus. You've led them to Jesus himself, that it will provide them a foundation of life that they will hold on to, hopefully all their lives, but certainly if they experience trauma or brokenness or consequences of poor decisions, it will always be the light shining in their darkness, to lead them back to a place of stability and flourishing in their best life. And if you find yourself later on in life and your kids aren't choosing to live the way that you had hoped or you had shown them towards Jesus, take hope, because the light that you shined into their life early on will be there now and will be there still into their future. And that someday, like all of us, they will get to a season of life where they can see more clearly than they ever had before, maybe through the refining fire of consequence and struggle in life. Their view will clear and they will see all the foundation that was laid for them in life, and they will return to it, and they will not sway or waver from it when they're old. I think that's the hope that God offers us in that little nugget of Scripture today. The one last word is to take hope, because God's promise remains, and ultimately, God's promise for us to live in his way, if we're living in his way towards Jesus, and we face the hard stuff of life, that someday, and maybe one day, when we're with him, we'll look back in the perfection of relationship with God and creation restored and what we describe as heaven, where heaven and earth unite and we live in unity with one another and with God. We will look back and say, oh, I see. My view is clear now, that the way I should go is the way to my best life. So take hope today. That's my one last word from the little nugget of Proverbs 22:6. I'm so excited. Next Sunday, I want to give you a little sneak peek. Pastor Laurent will be sharing. Pastor Laurent is our pastor of our African congregation here at Living Hope Church. He's going to be sharing. We have one combined service, and he just recently got back from Africa and talked with the new work that's happening there in Burundi, Living Hope Burundi. God's on the move, doing amazing things. So he's going to be sharing in our 10 o'clock service at Living Hope this coming Sunday. So come bring a friend. It's going to be an exciting time of hearing what God is doing. And then the next Sunday, the following Sunday, I believe it's September, 4th, 7th, 8th, 9th, September 11th, I think, if I do my math right. Join us as we start a brand new conversation, Find Hope Here. And I want to invite you to invite someone. Did you know that 80% of people say if they were just invited to church that they would accept and come? That means you are one conversation away from someone in your life, some neighbor, some friend, some complete stranger at Kroger, finding their way to hope, to leave beside and set down worry and instead embrace hope. And we're going to talk about what hope is. It is the foundation of our faith. It leads us to a place where we can see the potential of the world rather than the pessimism of fear and worry and doubt and anxiety. What if God could help us find hope together? I hope that you will come find hope here at Living Hope on September 11th as we journey through another series together. I'm so excited. We got some fun stuff we're going to be giving away that Sunday. Just excited about the hope that God has given us through the good news of Jesus Christ. I'm so thankful again for you joining me here. Again, I'm Pastor Jon Gibson, one of the pastors here at Living Hope. And this has been One Last Word. Again, make sure you subscribe and share as we continue the conversation. God bless the rest of your week. Go in his peace and power this week.
Thanks for listening to One Last Word. Make sure you subscribe and share today. Find more resources at elivinghope.com.